Hey everybody, welcome to In Too Deep. I'm your host Jack Rowland. We are diving back into the psychedelic waters with a trippy episode for you guys today. Today we talk about psychedelic healing in the context of 5-MeO DMT, which is a bit different to the more commonly known DMT. It is far more potent than NN-DMT. I've read that it's about 4 to 6 times stronger on various websites, and the experience is very different. 5-MeO DMT is found in the venom of the Sonoran desert toad. The venom is extracted, dried, and typically smoked and produces a very overwhelming psychedelic experience, which many describe as deeply profound and even life-changing. Joining me today is the wonderful Adeon Asfar. Adeon is best described as a Shamanic Adventurer and an Entheogenic Explorer. Adeon blends together ancient wisdom teachings and processes into applications for a modern world. All right, let's get straight into it with Adeon Asfar.
Is there a point to all this?
I think we're getting in too deep. You don't apply. Bad luck.
Well, I have one speed, I have one gear. Go, 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 go.
I'll tell you when we're getting in too deep, too deep, too deep.
Adeon, how are you, brother?
I'm good. Good, Master Jack. Good to see your face again. And,
Always good to see you, man. Always
finally
good.
get in a space, mic to mic.
Yeah, I know. Really appreciate you coming on, man, and really excited to talk about this subject. Actually, it's a very interesting subject.
Well, yes, it's a fascinating subject, and that's what's kept me going with exploring this space.
So I guess I'll start with what is 5-MeO DMT?
What is 5-MeO DMT? That's a good question. Well, I mean, some people refer to it as the God molecule. It's got a reputation for guiding one into very tense peak states of what I would describe as unity consciousness. It's available in a number of natural compounds, as well as a synthetic version, which me personally have had very, very limited, actually I would say almost no experience with synthetic 5-MeO, just because the first and only time I tried it, it didn't quite work. So I've really sort of focused on the 100% organic, natural, Mother Nature's creations, predominantly working with the Bufo alvarius venom. That's its most common natural form or availability. There's about 10 to 20% of 5-methoxy-DMT contained in that. From exploring that as a sacred medicine, I would say.
And what is that Bufo?
What it is the Bufo alvarius,
also
known as the Sonoran desert toad, aka the Colorado river toad. I mean, these amphibians, they used to spread all the way up into middle California, up through Arizona, up to Colorado, also down into this southern Mexico. Quite prolific iconography of this particular Bufo toad, featuring in both the Aztec and Mayan cultures. So we know that it was pretty prolific, all even through the Yucatan jungle, and it's only through modern colonization and through the use of pesticides and modern farming, agriculture, that has really kind of destabilized the environment for the toads to exist, which has pushed them all the way back into the Sonora Desert. And a lot of people don't know that one of the main reasons why Bufo toads, like the cane toad that we have, the Bufo marinus toads, they will hibernate underground for lack of water and lack of food. If there's ample water and food, they tend not to necessarily go into hibernation. So the Sonoran desert toad is notorious for going into hibernation for pretty much 9 months of the year. and coming out when the monsoon rains start coming through in July. And it's more like June, July, August sort of time frame, the wet seasons where the desert comes back to life. But just to go back to your original question with, what is 5-MeO-DMT on a molecular level, as far as from a human condition, this is the same compound DMT which we as humans produce ourselves. So any analysis of spinal fluids and of human spinal fluids will show quite a large amount of 5-MeO-DMT, as well as some of the more plant-based DMTs like NN-DMT in the system. The jury is still out on the function and role of this molecule that's floating around in our systems quite natively. And to me, I see it as a molecular key. That's probably the best way I would describe it. A key to open up certain deeper levels of cellular communication. When we can talk more about the effects and stuff in shortly, but as far as what it is, we have elevated levels of 5-MeO-DMT come into play in our sleep. So it's definitely connected with that dream state experience. There are studies and research materials that have been done on the levels of DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, increasing in the system, particularly of mothers around 36 weeks into embryonic fetal development, and as well at the point of death, where we have that transition from life to death. Just as we have that coming in the fetal development at 36 weeks, we also have it on the exit, leaving the physical, coming into the physical and leaving the physical. There has been some really, really fascinating research, which I have had some experience firsthand with, seeing the results of this kind of phenomena of neurogenesis in adult humans. That's the actual recreation, repair of damaged brain tissue. Of course, like all entheogenic compounds, they have the effect of neural plasticity as well, which can open up and allow the neurological pathways of the brain to rewire and change energy flows within the brain on a physical level. So, if you've been brought up with, say, a heavy trauma-based environment, and your brain development has been geared for fight or flight, trauma responses, survival mechanisms, and then you find yourself in adult light settling into a much more calmer, safer environment of life, you may still be geared for those responses. And we see a lot of that sort of stuff with PTSD and with veterans and in that community. From World War II, they used to call it shell shock, and where, sounds would trigger autonomous reactions and traumatic reactions relative back to the wartime effort, or in my earlier example, certain things may trigger autonomous responses from the body into fight or flight, nervous system disorders, anxieties, these sorts of things. So when, to have a tool like these entheogenic compounds to be able to provide a space of neuroplasticity to allow the brain to literally rewire itself into a more present, balanced state, free from, those traumatic responses. It's kind of like, the old saying of the well-worn path. We keep, wearing out your favorite vinyl record from the old days.
Yeah, totally.
The more you go down that pathway, neurologically speaking, the more wider that bandwidth is going to be. So when we're able to change that wiring and change that structure, we can start building new pathways and creating new pathways to more of our pleasure centers, to more of our creative spaces, to more hemispherical right-left brain synchronization, right down through the mammalian brain down to the reptilian brain. It's like creating those pathways for energetic flows. And this is where I believe, a lot of the ceremonial aspect comes into effect when sitting with these compounds and medicines.
Yeah. Yeah, just kind of
Does that
talking
answer your
about
question?
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about the road traveled or the path traveled, yeah, it really reminds me of that Michael Pollan quote. I think he just puts it so well, where it's like our minds are like a ski slope, and the skiers are our thoughts, and over time, the tracks are basically the thought patterns, and over time those thought patterns and tracks get deeper and deeper, and what psychedelics kind of do is put a fresh layer of snow over so the skiers can go anywhere they want, which I thought was a great kind of way of articulating that rewiring. It's like a hard reset, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in just that term, the thought patterns. Patterns are patterns because they repeat.
You're right.
And so it's recreating new patterns, new pathways.
So I imagine a lot of my listeners probably are familiar with psychedelics, but 5-MeO DMT is a little more obscure, and it is different to DMT. How does it differ from DMT in your just the kind of classic DMT? In kind of your words.
Look, as I was saying earlier, it's more attuned to pretty much our own natural DMT production. So on a feeling level, it can feel familiar, a lot more familiar than NN-DMT. I see NN-DMT as more of, well, number one, it's predominantly plant-based. So you get what I describe it as like the Peacock Experience to start with, which is, the visuals, the incredible, fractal, high definition, overwhelming visual experience. And if you've ever seen a peacock mating ritual, where the male peacock lures its female mate into surrender through this mesmerizing display of fractal peacock feather visuals.
Fibonacci vortex.
So you get this, that's right, the Fibonacci vortex. So you get this incredible visual display to lure you into this space of total awe, wonder, and surrender. And mesmerized. It's like being mesmerized, and that as you sink into that and allow that to overflow you or overtake you, that's where you get the classic NN-DMT sort of breakthrough experiences that can take you into altered states of reality, interaction with fractal entities, other states of consciousness. But I do feel like it's an experience that's almost experienced from the self and the other self. So it's almost like it's happening around you outside of yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally
makes sense. Even though it is all happening within, but it's like being in a virtual reality kind of experience. And again, it's plant-based, so it's no surprise that you're getting this incredible fractal display. When you look at the plant world, it's one big in-your-face, incredible fractal, and the beauty of nature and plants, of their flowers and their seeds and their blooms, and their, it's almost like this higher dimensional reflection of that spirit, of the plant spirits.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm looking at heaps of cactus and succulents right now, and they are all that. So yeah, framing it that way really makes sense, actually.
So it is. It's like connecting with the spirit and essence of the plant kingdom and the natural kingdom, where with 5-MeO DMT, it's a much more inner. I almost would describe it as a yin experience. It's like going deep within, into the emotional body, through the feeling nature of the soul. It can be completely visualless for some people, depending on how many times you journey with this medicine. but it will take you into the depths, into the deepest parts. And to me, the breakthrough experience is almost the opposite. It's not going out of yourself and being, pulled into this incredible fractal and becoming part of the fractal tapestry of creation and breaking through that. It's almost like an implosion, of going in, like into the depths of the darkness of the void, and coming to that point of unity consciousness, and then breaking through in the inner realm. And again, it's they both have a similar effect in that they can most definitely induce an ego death, egoless state, carry you through to that unity consciousness state. But for me, and I've had this from a number of people have shared a similar experience. I've had my first ayahuasca journey I did back in 2009, and loved it. I drank 6 cups of ayahuasca and 3 times as much as everyone else, and was just really kind of having a beautiful time, and very, very deep visual experiences, very, very insightful experiences, which didn't quite make a lot of sense to me at the time, but it wasn't until the integration circles a few days later that I realized I was actually tapping into and experiencing other people's experiences in the circle. So I was having shared vision, and again, this was my first time with it, so I didn't really have a context for what those experiences were about. So to me, they were just bizarre, funny, kind of, and sometimes somewhat scary experiences, but not scary in the sense to me on a personal level, because it wasn't sort of relative to me. It was like having a waking dream to a waking nightmare to a way, and it's just being able to sit back and observe it. But I didn't have a depth of experience, and even within the smokable form of having those sort of breakthrough, big epiphany, unity consciousness experiences, which was fine. But I found that the Bufo medicine was the first time I had that, and that was 10 years after. Oh no, what was it? It was 8 years. 8 years later from that first ayahuasca journey, so early 2017. That absolutely floored me. Yeah. And I was so happy. Yeah. Floored me in a good way. I was like, yes, finally.
Wonderful.
But it's been an interesting journey. But I could share a bit about just my very first experience. Was an endogenous experience that I had in my early 20s. So had a little bit of experience with recreational psychedelics, and but I at that time I was doing mixed martial arts, tournament fighting. I was in my early 20s and was training Kung Fu at the Wing Chun Kung Fu Academy here in Melbourne with Grandmaster of Kung Fu, William Chung. And I was also training Taekwondo and a few other martial arts just for the tournament fighting side. And I'd had a little bit of experience with meditation through the martial arts practices, but predominantly I was very fascinated with the concept of chi energy and what Grandmaster William Chung was teaching with the Kung Fu practices, because I was practically a featherweight back then, and so having that extra kick and raw power from being able to harness and work with chi energy. So practicing all the forms and that side of things made for some pretty successful tournament fighting. And at this point of time, my partner and we decided to get ourselves a little kitten. And when the kitten got spayed, she developed a really nasty infection. And we took her back to the vet, and the vets basically cleaned her up and did what they could. And they said, but she's pretty bad off. There's a 50-50 chance she'll either make it through the night or is it going to make it? Isn't going to pull through? If she can make it through the night, then she should do good. So we decided to go on a little road trip just down to a holiday house down in Phillip Island. And when I got down there, someone had left a book. Probably one of our family members who'd previously been in the house had left a book about Reiki, and had these, picture of these. It was called Healing Hands of Reiki, and it was the story of Mikao Usui and how he, went up Mount Kurama and sat and meditated and got the symbols of Reiki to do healing. And I'm sitting there checking this book out, and it's like, oh wow, this sounds just like working with chi energy. But and Grandmaster William Chung had taught me that this chi energy can be used for healing as well. And so I read the book. It was a small book from back to cover, and it basically just said, he meditated and he saw patterns and symbols and was able to use them as the form to channel his chi energy into healing. And so I sat down, had my little kitten asleep on the couch next to me. I sat on the nice big recliner and thought, okay, I'm going to do a meditation and get some symbols and do some Reiki. Right? That's what you do. And again, I was like 22 years old, and thought I'd give it a crack. And so I sat there and dropped into the space and started meditating. And lo and behold, I started to see these faint symbols. Not symbols, they were more like patterns. And the more I dropped into them, focused on the symbols, the more vibrant they became, until they became these very, very beautiful organic fractals. And it got deeper and deeper until the point I had a full endogenous DMT breakthrough experience, which absolutely blew my mind. I had the classic. I connected with an ancestor from my father's lineage from Alexandria in Egypt. Two of my sisters who passed away very young came through, and the message that came through to me very clearly was, this is your path. Wow. This is your path. You're a healer. You're not you're not a fighter. Drop the warrior. You've done that many times before. This is your path. This is your path. And the effect of that experience was just so profound. It literally changed the direction of my life, and I became incredibly almost obsessive of like how, no wonder people meditate. I came out of the experience, and there was a kind of somewhat traumatic part of it as well, but that's a whole other story. But it took me through an experience of unity consciousness, which somewhat freaked me out at the time, and but it ended in just this profound space of expansive heart opening, realization, awakening. And I became obsessed with this state. And straight away the next day, sat myself. The cat was fine. She made it through the night. And the next day, sat down on the couch to okay, let's go do this again. And nothing. No patterns, no fractals, no breakthroughs. But I thought, no, I've got to find out what this is. And I began my spiritual journey, and the rest is sort of history from there.
Wow. That's an incredible story. Yeah. I've never had a kind of a psychedelic trip experience like naturally through like, I guess, meditation. I've, read about it a lot. But I have had I think the first time I read Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, I think it was that book, also some Ram Dass. I remember I had a really amazing, overwhelming feeling of newfound presence. And kind of similarly, I've been, for many years was just trying to chase that feeling. I try and get in the same space. I try and read the same stuff. Couldn't quite get there, but it was enough to kind of kick me into gear with many years of reading and researching about that kind of spiritual inquiry. But your story sounds amazing.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's the thing. You can get access to this kind of information, but there's one thing, from reading it and studying about these things, and then there is the actual experiential experience of it. My background, even just growing up, was brought up with a somewhat very strong spiritual bent. As I said, I lost two of my sisters very young. I've got four sisters. I'm the middle child of four sisters. And my older sister and younger sister either side of me passed away very young. So I was brought up with this belief from a very young child that, I had these two guardian angels that, my sisters. And as a kid, you believe this stuff when your parents tell it to you. So I always had this kind of secondary vision or feeling of this spiritual connection with non-visible spiritual beings. And I'd had some other experiences in my younger days. I had a very, very close near-death experience. At the age of 13, I was hit by a car and have full recall of having been out of my body and seeing myself smashed up and this feeling of just finally freedom and liberation. It's like, I'm out of here, and then it shifted very quickly to again seeing my mother there holding my smashed up little body and just thinking, oh my God, I can't do this to her a third time. And then came to in hospital a few days later. But it was apparently a very, very close call. And so I had this from, even at that age of 13, this kind of just knowing an experience of being more than just the physical, and having, a consciousness or spirit, however you want to look at it, that, more likely inhabited the body as opposed to, the being all about the body and physical. And and then having this other experience with the Reiki session, first Reiki session with the cat, really opened things up. And I spent pretty much the next 10 years of my life studying from Qigong. I went from Kung Fu into Qigong, and then studying Kabbalah as well, Hermetic Kabbalah and esoterics, as well as started exploring shamanism. And that was one of the most intriguing. I mean, they were all pretty intriguing. They all had their elements for sure. But what I loved about the shamanistic practices, very similar to the Qigong side of things, but the shamanistic stuff seemed to have this incredible integration between spirit and the physical. So physical phenomena was a highlight of that work for me, meaning that getting physical responses, to your shamanic intentions, ceremonies, practices, that would show without a shadow of a doubt, hey, this is actually having an effect on my physical environment. This is almost like magical experiences, which you sometimes don't get in just pure, meditative states, visionary states. So that was what really got me exploring the shamanic path, which then led me to finding out about ayahuasca and reading a little bit about DMT. And I remember reading about it the first time and going, my God, this is describing that experience, Yeah. And so I put the call out to the universe and eventually went looking for it, couldn't find it, but eventually it found me. So I was pretty happy about that.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Started exploring that space. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
when the student is ready.
Totally.
The plant teacher will appear.
Well, so what was your entry level into shamanism? How did that start coming to you, I guess? What was were you a weed smoker? Was it mushrooms or?
No, I was never into smoking weed or anything like that. Certainly gave it a crack a few times, and I was the professional one in my group of friends that would green out.
Yep.
I was
Same.
the green out guy. We're like, oh my god. Although then I did discover sativas later in my adult life, and developed a new relationship with Mary Jane. But no, I got into it in that time in my 20s. I was running a pretty solid corporate enterprise in the IT realm, so I was very tied up in that world. Even like I started my business when I was 15, and
Wow.
It carried through high school, and so I was very, very busy with corporate life, and at the same time, just being a young entrepreneur and being able to create my own lifestyle flexibility. I just began from this experience. I began exploring, healing and what where you can go with that. The thing was, and that was the early 90s, and my business was part of developing and providing a lot of the early first generation internet equipment into the country. So the internet was in the process of being built at that time, and having access to the communications and information wasn't like what we've got today. So I really had no one to talk to about it, and I fished around, and I got onto a few different psychic groups. I also revisited my core roots in Christianity, and spent a lot of time, because Jesus was a miraculous healer. I spent a lot of time, restudying, Christian texts, Judaic texts, right down to Greek diglots and as the Dead Sea Scrolls, and as much as I could. My family's on my mother's sides from Scottish Irish, my father's from Egypt, and so we also had a good body of resources available to me through my family as well from Egypt, and I've been over there quite a few times, even as a kid. So I just began studying on my own, and the shamanism came to me. It was part of a package I got from the Australian Psychics Association. Right? They sent out this psychic training course, and on tape, on cassette tape.
Yeah.
And one of the practices in there was a meditation to call in a totem animal guide, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll give this a go, And I was living in the city in North Melbourne, Kensington area at the time, and sat down and did this meditation, and I'm thinking, what power totem animal am I going to get? Maybe a tiger or a lion or something, and I got rabbit. So rabbit came through, and I was really disappointed in that. But it came through, and it came through very strong. I tried to push it away and wait for the tiger or the jaguar to show up, and rabbit came back. Just kept coming through.
Hey, at least you weren't like a sea cucumber or something.
Oh, no, yeah, that's right, sea cucumber. I know a few sea cucumbers. They're prickly people. But anyway, I did this little meditation, and then followed through as a week-long process of a totem calling and integration. And as I began meditating on the totem of rabbit, it was teaching. It was that what it was trying to teach me was presence and awareness, to be still, to be present, to be aware, to be alert. And in my lifestyle, I was very busy doing a lot of different things. So it was kind of reminding me just to stop, sit still, and just to be present. And in this process, they said, by the 7th day of doing this daily meditation, the totem will, reveal itself to you in some way, to show you that the connection and the energy of the totem's being integrated and the connection's established. And as I said, at the time I was living in the city, and on the seventh day, I kind of lost track of it. I just was doing the meditation each day, and my partner and I went out to dinner with my sister and my younger sister, and yeah, we left her house and stepped out onto the street. This rabbit jumped out in front of us on the sidewalk. I'm like, oh my God, it's my rabbit. It's my totem, you know. And I told my partner this. She knew what I was doing. And she's like, oh, you know, she was freaked out as well. We'd been living there for nearly 18 months and, you know, never seen a rabbit in the city. And so we thought, let's follow the rabbit, you know, and it bounced off and we followed it and bounced off and we followed it. And it literally would go ahead, stop, wait for us to catch up, go ahead, stop. And it literally guided us right back to our house. And just across the laneway from our house, there was a vacant block that had just been cleared for building some townhouses on it. And it led us into this block, and we walked into the block and we stopped and looked around. We counted 33 rabbits.
Wow.
Literally across the road across the laneway, not even a road, across a laneway, a bike laneway. And
Holy
both
shit.
of us were like, wow, this shit's legit. And I think totem connection established. But
Wow.
It was from that little kind of bit of magic. I mean, however you want to look at it, synchronicities,
Yeah.
just whatever, coincidence. To me, it was, hey, you know, 7 days of meditating on the rabbit. Seventh day went to get an example of the totem presenting itself, and we had 33 of them show up.
Wow.
And I just was like, no, this is amazing, and it made me take it a lot more seriously. You know, of like, okay, how am I not being present in my life? You know, and it taught me to slow down more. And at the same time, you know, focus much more on that work. And, you know, from my experiences, I like to have that physical, you know, that real physical connection. You know, I don't want to be just kind of deluding myself or, you know, just going into realms of imagination, but, you know, I work in that space for results, you know, and for deep results and powerful results. And, you know, from that time going forward, I began to fuse a lot of my practices together. And, you know, then that led me into working with plant medicines, which, you know, back in 2009, as I said, and this was just as, you know, plant medicines were starting to become more and more available in Australia. And then being introduced to DMT as a smokable form and exploring that, it began to really open up. I saw, you know, these are other teachers, and, you know, just like I had a teacher for you know, my kung fu and my qigong and my Kabbalah and these other traditions, I started to see the real value as these master plants as teachers. And then when I went to the US, went over there for the eclipse in 2017, after, you know, had been exploring ayahuasca and DMT for about 5-6 years before that. And then 2017, it was just by chance, just ran into a Bufo facilitator who took me on a journey with that. And that experience, you know, you've probably heard it described before, but being, you know, taken through into that space of samadhi, unity consciousness, straight to the top of the mountain, so to speak, was incredibly profound. I thought, okay, I want to explore this more, because everything I've done in my traditional training has always been, it came with the intention of how can we learn to get to these states ourselves. And what I found with these teachers and guides, plant teacher guides and you know, medicine guides, is they are teaching us how to get to these states. And kind of setting new what would be the word, like setting the bar of where we can go and giving us an experiential experience that can show you this is what human consciousness is capable of. So I've been working a lot with that medicine, and also exploring different processes that can get you there outside of the medicine space. When I actually went and did, I sat with the Coolmac in Sonora Desert, went and spent some time with them not long after this experience in 2017, and went through a series of their initiations, and the message that kept coming through was really quite beautiful, because it was like spoken through the traditional indigenous Seri language, translated into Spanish, translated from Spanish into English. And the message was, you are the medicine, you are the medicine, you are the medicine. And, in many ways we are, we produce this ourselves, and we have the capacity to. But then the weeks following, and again, this experience lasted for a week after I left the desert at that time, and was running a workshop and retreat up at Mount Shasta, and was up there for a week. And every morning I had the same dream of being back in ceremony with the Coolmac, and doing the ceremony, doing the journey, having the experience. And instead of going through the ego death, dissolving out into unity consciousness, coming back, but instead of waking up on the Baja Gulf of California, I was waking up in bed with this fine message saying, you are the medicine. And this happened every day for a week. Like, it wasn't a lucid dream. I thought I was there. I was like literally dreaming of being in ceremony. And the experience was the same. Wow. And after this went on, and I just remember thinking, far out, is this going to be the rest of my life? If so, life's going to be great. What a great way to start the day. Yeah. Through unity consciousness out the other side.
So this was after the first Bufo ceremony. It lasted for a week of this kind of high.
No, this was after an intensive. I went and spent a good solid week down with the Coolmac. They're a tribe on the west coast of the Sonora Desert. Yep. And prior to that, this particular facilitator, I spent some more time working with her. She trained with Dr. Jerry, one of Dr. Jerry's students who wrote The God Molecule. Spent a fair bit of time, exploring the space with her as well. And that then led me to Mexico and trekking through the Sonora Desert, out to the tribes, which was phenomenal. But so after that solid intensive with them, coming out the other side of it, it just kept going. And it's described. Since then I've done well over 1,000 journeys in this space, and sat in many different circles, many different people all over the world, and it's super common. We call them like reactivations, where you will have reactivations into that space. And it also is an incredible teacher to show you how you physically release trauma out of the body, and the journey space, it changes. In the early days of doing the work, I never used to work with intentions into the space. It was more like subconscious intentions, I think, were driving the experience. And also the medicine, the spirit of it has its own unique intelligence of how people, the journeys that people have. And each one is it's like going through a book, or it's like going through a journey of life. Each one sort of picks up from where the last one left off. And I know a lot of, I've heard a lot of people sort of expressing, well, why would you need to keep going there? Why, once you get to the top of that mountain and have that experience, why go back? And I think in one of the conversations we had earlier, you mentioned, well, if you had a hotline to God, wouldn't you want to speak to him a few times?
Exactly.
There's that, there is that, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Once you start really exploring the depths of this work and what it can do, there are two sides of this. And, one is profound healing for people, both emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And I've seen that firsthand over and over and over and over again. And the other side of it is the exploration of, okay, what happens when you go through that healing process enough times and release and clear and what comes after that? What comes after a unity consciousness experience? What comes after an ego death experience? What more is there? And my answer to that is we live in a multidimensional, infinite universe. That's what's more after there. There is this experience never ceases to amaze me, and it continues to surprise me what it can show you on so many different multidimensional levels, aspects of ourselves in the sense of the human condition, of what I believe we are evolving into and moving into. I see the human experience as it is right now in this present state, a transitional period into something more, and something more after that, and something more after that. We are evolving consciously, and these teachers are here at this time in history, have resurfaced. Even Wachuma and Peyote, they only came back onto the scene out of obscurity, in the late 80s. Ayahuasca and these the jungle medicines, in the last 20 years. The peyote knowledge was lost because of the annihilation of the tribes that carried their wisdom. It wasn't until many, many years later. The same with the Bufo medicine of the Sonoran Desert tribes. They were classified extinct in the 1930s. The Spanish used to hunt them with bounties on their heads just to wipe them out because they were indigenous, to clear them out. So they escaped and hid in the deserts, but in that process, they lost their medicine people, they lost their chiefs, they lost their wisdom keepers, and they lost the knowledge. And now we have this resurgence, coming back at this critical time in history to do the healing, that's much, much needed, particularly in Western culture, and also to provide some hope and insight into the true nature of our eternal selves. So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating work.
Yeah, on the kind of the healing side of, psychedelics on the whole, but also I guess in the context of Bufo, what is kind of happening that's making, like in your interpretation, what's happening that's enabling people to heal? Like what's the experience that actually makes it different from a wonderful, kind of drug experience where you're seeing cool things and wow, what an amazing ride we're on, that actually, the difference between that and actually making it this deeply personal, transformational experience? What are some either personal experiences you've had or witnessed? Yeah.
First, putting it into the context of, say, Western medicine, drug experiences, or psychedelic experiences. We all know friends of ours who have had a bad trip. Psychedelics are touchy for some people. They don't guarantee a good trip. I have a bit of a saying of there's no such thing as a bad trip. All trips are good trips. But it's how you can integrate the experience. And in Western medicine, we take drugs to make ourselves feel better, to null the pain, to, for want of a better word, kind of suppress the emotions and use raw chemistry to bring ourselves into balance. Whereas these traditional medicines, and essentially that's what they are, medicines not just for the physical, but for the mind, for the body, and for the spirit, they almost work in an opposite way. It's like, do the work and enjoy a pain-free life for the rest of your life, as opposed to don't do the work and suppress the pain for the rest of your life, in the Western approach, And so the healing side of it, how I see it works, I really, from the years of exploring this and the many journeys and circles I've worked with, see that we store a lot of our trauma, we store a lot of our emotion, our good emotions, our loved up emotions, our different emotional states are anchored into the body. They get anchored into the body. And when you think of like genetics as a recording tool, as a way that we can pass on information to our offspring on a biological level for survival, we integrate our life experiences through the body. I really see the brain as the processor of a biological computer, and the hard drive per se is every strand of DNA in our system, storing that information that can be passed on to our offspring on a physical level. And then we have our consciousness. And so what these states do, in particular with the Bufo and the 5-MeO molecule key, is like a molecular signature to the body and to the cells to say, okay, it's time to let go. It's time to release all this energy. And when you think about, the levels of DMT being elevated at that point of transition from life to death, people can have, and I say this in the sense of, if you're lucky enough, which is very common with the Bufo experience, to have an ego death experience, which is essentially like an induced near-death experience. And it's, it's not a real ego death unless you really believe you're dying and you've died, which can be terrifying.
Yeah.
Very, very scary for people the first time, and it's like, you say to people before they go into this, this is something that you may experience. And, but also this is a state where, Zen Buddhist monks sit on mountaintops for a lifetime trying to get to. So if you are given this experience, take it as a gift, and to trust in the process and allow it to carry you through the experience. And it's in that experience where the healing takes place, because suddenly we have this, what can appear as a traumatic or cathartic release of energy. And tell you what, everyone dies differently. It's one thing you learn from witnessing and seeing this in process. It can be released through verbalization, through tears, through screaming, through physical movement. That does require a facilitator, one-on-one, to really work with you. I remember this great story James Orrock shared at one of the conferences. Author of Tryptamine Palace. He's passed away now, bless him. But he shared his first 5-MeO DMT experience with the Bufo, and he's like, he goes, do we really need to have facilitators? He goes, I remember my first time. I was in my apartment with my two best friends. Had a big pipe of this and chugged it down, and don't know what happened, but I just remember coming to, screaming, naked, and I'd thrown the table across the room, and my two best friends were cowering behind it saying, please stop, please stop. So having this release of anger or trauma or pain, having that freed from the system, and this is the number one key for the healing work to actually take place and be a permanent thing, is the ability for the person, with the support of the facilitator or the guide, to guide you through it, to just guide you through it, so that to really, really set yourself up in the framework of whatever is coming up is coming out. And one of my teachers in Mexico, says all the time, says, you give your trauma a voice, it's finally heard, and it no longer needs to scream anymore. It's released. It's like cleared out of the system. And once it's cleared out of the system, it's like going to the toilet and flushing it. Once it's flushed, it's done. It's gone. You don't go digging through the sewer trying to get it back. And this is the mistake that I see happens with a very small percentage of people that go into this work. You know, one of my other teachers, you know, she makes it adamant in her circles that, you know, there are no victims here. We don't accept victims in this circle, which can be a very confronting thing for people who have attachments to their trauma stories or attachments to their pain and suffering, because this work is going to bring it out. It's going to bring it right to the surface and put it in your face. And the skill and having the courage and the compassion for yourself to say, okay, it's time to let this go now. And when it happens, it's like that. It's like a light bulb coming on. And suddenly you go back out into life. Some people don't even fully recall their journeys, their experiences with it.
Yeah.
Some people have experiences that, looking from the outside of what the body is doing and the physical external compared to what's going on in the inside, can be the complete opposite. You know, I've seen people come out of these journeys that during their journey, you know, they just screamed and yelled and flailed about and then come out of it, you know, smiling and crying with joy and happiness. And they're like, wow, that was the most beautiful thing. It was so peaceful, just in this, you know, this bathing in this eternal light of beauty and awe and wonder. And, you know, and they get quizzed by their friends. Do you remember screaming? They're like, what? I wasn't screaming. Was I screaming? Do you remember moving around? What? What do you mean? Did I move? So they've had this completely dualistic kind of experience, but on the internal, that unity consciousness experience, but on the external, it's like this shedding, these death throes, these releases of energy. But then you go back out into life, and suddenly, you know, you get on the integration groups and chats, you know, from people, you know, you hear them talking about, wow, you know, I had this experience with this person that used to really, really trigger me, and they did their thing and they said their thing, and it was like water off a duck's back. I had no response to it. I had no emotional charge. Or, you know, people who have had traumatic experiences that, like one of a classic one as an example, you know, a woman who was attacked by a German Shepherd as a child and had this innate terrible fear of dogs. And suddenly she had no fear of dogs. The fear had gone. And she was able to, you know, pat them and interact with them for the first time ever in her life.
Wow.
You know, and it's like, well, how did that happen? You know, how did that happen? Subtle but a profound shift. And that didn't come back. You know, that fear didn't come back. It was released through her experience. And the same thing with one of the most profound and beautiful, amazing people that I like to sit with and share these experiences with are veterans, you know, and to see, you know, I've sat in so many different circles with different sort of demographics of people, and you know, the usual kind of civilian, everyday people that are, you know, either experiencing this for their own personal reasons of self-development, exploration, or to work on an aspect of themselves, where it's quite a vast difference in the type of people when you're working with veterans that are usually there because it's like their last-ditched effort. You know, have seen people that have come into that space that are classified as super high-risk suicide, on the high suicide spectrum, and you know, in many ways, they're ready to check out. You know, they're happy to check out, but you know, just burdened by, you know, all kinds of trauma from their childhood, what drove them into the military, up to their experiences in the military, up to, you know, all kinds of things. But to see the polarity in these people from when they come in, and to, you know, I've made some incredible friends through those connections, and you know, still to this day, 3-4 years later, are still profoundly shifted into a much greater true aspect of themselves, and freed from from all that baggage that they once used to carry. And it's incredible. It's incredible to see. And it's so subtle and amazing that it can happen through, you know, just a session or two, that they have these incredible shifts, and it changes their lives forever.
It's a true miracle, really, isn't it? I mean, God, there's like... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, it is. It's almost miraculous. But at the end of the day, they do the work.
Yeah.
You know, they do the work in the sense of how much energy it takes to carry this shit around with us compared to letting it go. You know, I mean, put it down to like, you know, carrying a bag of bricks. How much energy does it take to carry that bag around for your life, and how much does it take to let it go? You know, once it's let go of, it's like, oh my God, why would I want to pick that up again?
Yeah.
But, you know, some people, there's that, you know, there's always that 1% that, you know, they feel comfortable carrying their bag of bricks, and it's part of their identity. And so, you know, that's where you start to see the challenges in these types of medicines that some people really have a challenge with.
There's like proper trauma that some people go through that can actually, you know, will result in things like post-traumatic stress disorder, and actually create physical triggers and things like that. But which I'm, you know, that's just a whole nother level of you know, what veterans must actually have to live with real trauma responses. But, you know, there's also kind of, I guess, suppose, not to categorize, but almost like a lower level of trauma that collectively people seem to experience. And so, and that is like feelings of unworthiness or mistakes they've made or I don't know, lots of different things that lead people into these like patterns
of relationship breakup,
totally
jealousy,
and so much of it leads to this like real feeling of unworthiness. And I think that's like this, and it's, I feel like it's unfortunately so much more common than you know, people really talk about enough. This kind of there is this collective unworthiness that, I mean, I've definitely felt it at periods of my life. I was lucky enough that I was kind of able to identify it and try and work on what I thought was causing it. But, you know, it is. And also part of that comes with these kind of life scripts that we hold so dearly. And it's really hard to even understand why. But as you were saying, so much of like these kind of negative feelings or depression or various mental health disorders do subconsciously become part of our identities, and it's a weird thing, because you think of the word like ego, like it's pepping you up, and it's like, you know, I'm so good at whatever, but the ego can kind of attach itself to really negative things.
Complete opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to even understand from the outside why people would defend that. It's hard for them to understand why they would let their ego defend those kinds of stories. And it's almost a cruel joke that we have to like endure a lot of the time. It's like when someone tells you to be yourself, like when you're young and you're trying to get the girl or something, and someone's like, you just got to be yourself, man. And you're like, what does that mean? Like, it's so hard to relate to.
Which version of myself?
Exactly.
The one that wants to sit down and play my Super Nintendo all day, or the one that wants a girlfriend?
Totally. But yeah, it is that I feel like some of these experiences do enable you to, I don't know whether it's taking a big step out or go through those things, but it does enable, it kind of presents the mess in front of you, doesn't it? Plain and clearly. It just like, it shows you with unambiguously, very direct ways of kind of getting to the root cause of things. And it is like therapy. There is this direct, I don't know, plug-in to this kind of very therapeutic space. I don't know what that is, if that's the serotonin rush or the dopamine rush or whatever that allows you to stare at the trauma directly in the eye without as much fear. But I don't know. It's incredible being able to. It's like a hard reset, isn't it? It's like a very hard reset button.
Yeah. And I describe it as it's not like getting out of it. It's probably the greatest reality check you can have. And every single person on the planet is going to get this experience once in a lifetime, and then they're going to have to wait a whole other lifetime to come back and get it again. And so these having access to be able to explore these spaces and do this work is, to me, is an incredible gift that's available to not a lot of people. And so when you go into that space, it's like, man, make the most of it. This is not something you do if you are afraid of facing your demons. This is not something you can be afraid of facing your demons, but that's where courage comes into it. Having the courage to do that. There's no such thing as courage without fear. So having the courage to look at yourself, to look at the mess, to look at the dark side, and then be able to let it go. And the word, like, it's like the word forgiveness. To forgive yourself, to give it up. Just give it up, let it go, and let go of the story, let go of the emotion, let it free, and give it to God, and free yourself. That's the healing. Yeah, and then there is, there's as I said, there's physical healing that does take place, and I've seen that expressed with in one particular veteran that's a really good friend of mine. He's got the MRI scans to prove it. His brain damage cleared from being blown up and discharged from the military service. And the look on his neurologist's face when he went and got the MRI scans done after he sat with a shaman in Mexico, and one session they were blown away. Just couldn't explain it. Well, they could once he told them what had happened, and they started looking into it. But it opened up that whole avenue of continued research and exploration into this neurogenesis phenomenon. So there is that physical aspect, but on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, you come into this to really explore all aspects of your soul, all aspects of yourself without judgment. Just free yourself of the judgment, because the shit's going to come up, the demons are going to come up, and so are the angels. So is the beauty, the revelation of your true nature, and anything that's not in resonance with that internal light is just like oil, is going to be pushed to the surface, to be let go of, not to be clung onto, not to have a story made out of it. And the other powerful part of this is that it goes beyond the mind. The mind, in modern psychology, it's we sit down and we try to work things through mental issues using a mind that is struggling, whereas this kind of work, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond the mind. It clears the mind, dissolves the mind. It dissolves the mind and goes straight to the pain body, straight to the emotional body, and opens up a space for that to be cleared and released. Yeah. And then the fun begins.
So, I mean, you've kind of like mentioned it variously throughout the chat, but one big difference from an outsider looking in at like the 5-MeO or Bufo experience is the physicality behind it. So when someone smokes this Toad Venom, as opposed to like a DMT experience or something, that there is a very physical reaction with most people. I mean, I've experienced this once, so I can't talk as from experience as much as someone like yourself. But there is, it does. It's like a fractal of emotions as opposed to a fractal of visuals, and there is this physicality of people screaming, people laughing, people singing, people crying, people just like in ecstasy, and a lot of that is wriggling. Sometimes people get up. Sometimes people are very physical. Like you said, someone threw a table across the room or something. When you're I mean, it can look very, I think for people who have never experienced anything like this, it could be a very confronting thing to even witness, let alone go through. But when you're working with...
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you're working with veterans and people of severe trauma, I mean, is it like kind of, you know, like if you're around people going through that, is it scary? I mean, like there's a physical response going directly into the pain body of someone who is in deep, legitimate, like, I mean, I can't even comprehend what a veteran would be dealing with. I can't even comprehend it. It's so far from, I'm so lucky. It's so far from my world of, you know, being shot at, being blown up, killing someone because you're told to. You know, is it scary being in the same space as someone going through that much transformation, and they're very physical, abled people as well? Like,
as I said, there's no courage without fear. So yeah, look, it's you know, at the end of the day, they're people, and you know, there's one of my very best friends in high school. He's ex-military as well, and you know, watching him go through his journey into that field, right through into protective services, federal police, and that whole journey of life. I have a lot of respect for soldiers, for military, because there's, you know, a deep knowing. Plus, you know, my mother's side, my grandfather was in the Royal Air Force. My grandmother was a triage nurse in World War II, and you know, I was just brought up with that general basic level of respect, and I see them as ultimately, you know, they're just people too. But you know, many of them have gone into this military service as young men and women with the intent to protect and defend their families and their country, and to die doing it if need be. You know, so when you really boil it down to it's quite an honourable thing to know that there are these people in society that will say, "Don't worry, Jack, you can stay home and be a podcaster. I'm going to make sure that no one can come and, you know, come and harm you."
Yeah,
you know, and I'll die to protect you. You know? So when you can frame it in that way, and sure enough, you know, there's plenty of other people who, you know, probably enter that space from, you know, with different intentions. But when you boil it down and see that, you know, this is you know, a really noble thing, and then to be able to, you know, sit down in circles with these people and witness them and share their experiences with them, and come out the other side, and, you know, they're sitting in circle holding hands praying for a world where people like them aren't needed. You know, to where we don't have a need for war, where we don't have a need for you know, people to do that work anymore. But again, it's, you know, met a beautiful, huge dude, an ex-Navy SEAL, and in one of the circles we sat down together, and, you know, he shared, you know, from one of his other experiences at one of the clinics, the trials in Mexico, and you know, I'd been warned about you know, sitting in circles with veterans that you know, particularly the Special Forces guys, Navy SEALs, you know, they're trained to kill with their hands, and this particular ex-Navy SEAL, you know, shared a story of, you know, he threw the facilitator through the window and tried to kill him in the clinic, and had to be fully restrained, and just lucky that they had a couple other Navy SEALs in the building to contain him. You know, so and he was you know, really, he what he described was that onset of an ego death kicking in, and he felt like he was dying, and so his survival military training kicked in. It was just like, get the fuck out of there, you know, escape, and that meant getting through the adversary. But on the whole, I think, you know, seeing that there is an intelligence here, and a deep soul agreement when people come in with that intention to heal, as I said, they do the work themselves. So on a personal level, I've never seen any expressions of violence from them. Contrary to, I've had conversations with facilitators, that don't work with them for that fear, for that reason of just too risky. But I've seen more magic and more incredible, profound shifts in that community, and once they get a feel for it and develop that comfort, they get quite excited about the experience because of the profound effects it has. A lot of them also share their experiences because they come together like in a group, and it's like having that brotherhood back together. What they missed from the beautiful things that they missed about being in military service was their camaraderie-ship and their connection with each other, of being in life-threatening scenarios, life or death scenarios, and they've got to have each other's back and they've got to support each other. And now here they are, egging each other on to see who can drop into the ego death state quickest, and having each other's backs and encouraging each other and supporting each other and, really being there for each other. And at the same time, witnessing each other lose their fucking shit,
Yeah.
And whatever that looks like. But what you said earlier, of what you witnessed, everyone releases energy in a different way, and I think that's the thing. For me, it's through breath. So I don't move, but I breathe. I go into pretty heavy duty breathing, and I'm not even aware of that until usually on the tail end when I'm coming out of the experience, and that's common for people. So for me, I do a daily breathwork practice. It actually got me into breathwork because I realized, hey, this is how my body releases tension. Right? So I do a regular breathwork session every day, and it keeps me really, really calm. For other people, it may be primal screaming. You get the screamers. Other people, you get movement, dance even. I've seen people dance, and I've seen people shadow box.
Yeah.
I've seen. Was sat in an amazing circle not long ago with an ex-professional Muay Thai fighter, and to see this, in the depth of the medicine, this incredible man like doing these outrageous forms of Muay Thai and Kung Fu, and he wasn't even aware of it. And that's how it came out of him. And just seeing even the jaws dropping on the other people in the circle, just sort of watching this expression of how this happens and how this comes through. But it can teach you, if that's your thing, if primal screaming is what you do when you drop into these journeys, then, if you're really feeling stressed, you don't need to sit in a ceremony and go for a walk in the forest and scream your lungs out, just get it out, do your primal screaming, or go for a run, or do some Muay Thai Kung Fu, forms, or whatever it is that it can teach you, that your body is showing you. This is how you clear energy out of your system. Take it as a really good guide, a really authentic guide. And I've seen that over and over and over again for people that have been able to do that. And for some people, I call it the Buddha journey.
Yeah.
Where they're just still. Nothing, barely even breathing, just stillness. Yeah, they're the meditators.
Yeah.
So they come out. So, do you ever meditate? No. So you should. You'd be good at it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. My one experience, which I experienced last year, my actual recollection of it is kind of hazy. I kind of remember going into it, coming out of it. I remember various things, but the actual experience I have a very difficult time even articulating. But probably about 2 weeks after, this is just, me personally, I felt like I was glowing. I was really happy. It was like it was a gift to show you how good you can feel. It was the gift of love, of actually like dipping into the infinite nectar of gooey love and actually allowing yourself to be there, which so often we don't even allow ourselves to kind of feel that. I don't know why, but coming out of that just made me so much more present for a couple of weeks after, just noticing things, breathing, taking things slowly, seeing the beauty in everything, smiling more. And then I had a big weekend, and I had a Friday night and a Saturday night backed up with just hitting the booze and a lot of party shenanigans. And I had a great time. It was a really fun weekend. But then on the Sunday, Monday, when you're kind of feeling a bit dusty, that glow was gone. It had left, and I just felt back to kind of normal. It was like a 2-week mild high. And as a direct response of that, I decided it was a big reason of taking a year off the booze, which I'm currently doing. And I mean, getting a psychedelic kick up the bum, and it wasn't even like if you keep drinking, this will happen. It was the opposite. It was showing what's possible, showing like how good things can be just by being. And I've been kind of trying to wean off the booze for the last few years, so it wasn't out of the blue. But yeah, for me, it was kind of like, if the decision's easy to make, if there's an odd, difficult decision that's easy to make in your life, just make it. And at that point in time, just putting down the booze and that was kind of it. It was a decision that happiness and love is more important than the repetitive hangovers that and dehydration that I put my body through. Having said that, I'm not being like all high and mighty and, booze is the devil. Booze is great. It's a wonderful social lubricant. I've had so much good times, and I'll probably, I don't know, very, very easily might go back after this year. I don't know, and just try and deal with it a lot more slowly. But I don't know. I feel like that was the first, I've done quite a few psychedelics, and I feel like that was the first time I saw this direct, you read about psychedelics helping addiction and stuff. And that was the first time I really had a direct experience where it just wasn't even difficult to kind of have this break. And I don't know, really, really grateful for the experience. But yeah.
Yeah, well, that's definitely touches on to the addiction breaking quality that the Bufo seems to have, and this is actually how it became prominent again in the tribes of the Sonoran Desert, using it as a tool to get kids off meth and crack,
right?
And for breaking that cycle, because from the sounds of things, like with your own journey, it's not uncommon for the memory to be patchy of the experience, particularly of the breakthrough experiences. That's really quite common, because sort of when the mind goes offline, you tend to lose, especially for the first couple of times, you tend to lose the memory of the experience. However, the emotional energy that gets released can, that what comes out in that screaming, or what comes out in that movement, or whatever the release, what comes out with those tears and that crying, or the heavy breathing, whatever it is, as I said earlier, it's like it's beyond the limits of the mind. It's beyond the mental construct. It's like just opening it up, letting the emotional energy out. So let's just say, hypothetically, in your case, part of that release was the release of some of the social anxiety, the release of whatever emotions, energies that you used alcohol for as a coping mechanism, or as a for whatever reason that it was being used, is no longer there anymore. It's like it's being cleared out. You might not know what it was. Do you really need to know what it was? Or would you just attach to another story? Maybe it's better that way.
Yeah.
It's like going in for surgery, anesthetic, not being aware and awake while they're cutting you open. Do you really need to see that? Probably not. And then going back out there and into life and suddenly feeling this lightness, this high frequency lightness of your own consciousness, your own soul sort of shining through. And that's what I say, giving people those glimpses of your more authentic state, giving you a week of being in a more true authentic state without the burdens or the baggage of toxicity in your system, being alcohol or without the baggage. So, like a clear slate, like a clear slate emotionally. And then we go out and we get on it and have a big night and run ourselves into the ground and overdo it a bit with the alcohol and wake up the next morning going, oh my God, I feel poisoned. Why did I do that to myself? Right. Now suddenly you've got some new stress in the body. Now you've got some new, bit of self-shame or flagellation or however you want to look at it. Why did I do that? Now you've picked up a few bricks.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And, that you can, then take as an opportunity to go, okay, so, maybe I'll just go out and have a good cry, or maybe I'll go do some breath work, or, maybe I'll do some work on myself to clear this out, and making a conscious choice to say, I'm going to give this a break. I'm going to give this a break for a year. I think that's amazing. And that's where the adventure comes into it of, what this can open up for you, and these states, because it is exactly like you said, it shows you something, it shows you an experience of being that what we call normal. Suddenly it's like, wow, this is different. This is different, but I like it. I like it. I like feeling this way. I like being this way. And it becomes more and more magical in the sense of, as you tap into that space within yourself more and more, that's where you start to recognize, wow, there is a real authentic, beautiful, miraculous power here, and it's divine in nature. It is to me, it's the ultimate essence of creation, of our own souls, our own connection to source consciousness. And that's where the other side of this sort of work and experience and my inquiry of study through experience has really been of, okay, what can we do with this? What can we learn from these spaces? And going in with different intentions where the opening that gateway into unity consciousness, what does that actually mean? And I think, when people who have had a dabble with this, they have an experience that they describe as, this unity consciousness experience of being in this enlightened samadhi, nirvana kind of state. But, what else does that mean? And, for me, it has opened up incredible pathways to empathy and understanding of other people in my life. And if I could just throw out there, like just imagine if you could become another person for a moment, actually be them, experience them, everything, and also even outside of time, something that happened in the past, what was that person going through? Why did they behave that way towards me or whatever, into that intention, and then becoming them, for that moment and experiencing that. What does it mean to, what if you could have an experience of literally becoming, the eagle that you see flying through the air? What would that be like? But to actually have it, to actually experience it, what would it be like to tap into and become planetary consciousness. What beyond the concept of human awareness, but to be able to access those sorts of states of consciousness, what would that do for the human condition? How would we start to relate to life and each other differently if we were able to share in these kinds of experiences more? And to me, these are innate gifts that we have. I've experienced them outside of medicine, but with working with the medicine, seeing this as a tool, like training wheels, to show us this, and beyond even physicality. What is it like to be in the consciousness of a light being? Or what is the future consciousness of humanity becoming? What's that like? What's it like to be in the consciousness of an ant? It's just, where do you want to go with this? Where do you want to go in multidimensional reality?
Yeah.
In time and space. I mean, it's like opening up complete access to this phenomena that we hear people call the Akashic records. To be anything, anywhere, at any point in time and space beyond the physical as well. It's infinite. What a playground.
Yeah.
What an incredible playground. And this is where, the humility of coming into these experiences comes through, of not just on the healing side, but having the humility to, face your shit, let it out, be vulnerable, get it out of your system, let it go, forgive and just let it out. And then, the humility to recognize that our minds, our egos really are not in control of everything, have a very limited capacity for understanding, the natures and phenomena of reality, and that maybe, the purpose of the ego is really to celebrate life, to be the child of consciousness, to get on with doing the doing rather than trying to control the controlling. And, we don't have to sit there obsessing over when the fruit's going to pop out of the tree because we're hungry. We just need to find the fruit that's there and pick it and eat it, So it's incredible gift, all of it.
Couldn't agree more. When you're going into all these different realms and meeting metaphysical entities and, the impossible presents itself, have you ever found yourself getting lost in the new world and deciphering what to focus your importance on, whether it's the metaphysical realms or the psychedelic realms compared to the actual physical realms? Or have you ever kind of found, there's the spiritual ego can kind of reinvent itself in a it can be just as egotistic with all your beads and all your dressing like a messiah, not you, just people, and you know what I mean, I've met many people that will tell me with certainty that yes, beings exist and I know and blah blah blah, and there is I've met people that will put more importance on the other realms than this realm. Have you had an experience down your journey of that?
Kind of, yeah. Look, one of my favorite apostles of the Christian text was Thomas, doubting Thomas. He was always questioning Jesus about, the validity of things and if it was real, and thus doubting Thomas. And I think there's a really, really good place in this work for healthy self-doubt, healthy self-doubt, in the sense of question everything. One thing that for me, I've learned with absolute certainty, maybe a little bit of certainty, is that, everything we think we know, even in physics and maths and science, every single piece of information that's ever been written, all of it, it has all come through the construct of the mind, and therefore, it has to be weighed up with healthy skepticism of recognizing that, yes, it could be the truth, but it's probably not the whole truth.
Right.
And we can see that even in the evolution of the sciences, of things that we thought, 100 years ago, we thought the sun was a giant ball of burning coal because that was the modern energy technology of the day, coal, a big burning ball of coal that someone threw a match at some stage and caught fire. That was only 100 years ago, so now we believe it to be, a giant ball of helium and hydrogen gas burning. Is it? What are we going to discover in another 100 years' time? So, and that's the same applies to any of these spiritual experiences or visits or visitations with other forms of consciousness in those states and insights and learnings that can be so profound and so real, but they're still being filtered through the mind once we come back to ourselves, of trying to make sense of what that meant or what that entity communicated to us or said. I share this really interesting story, which has two sort of sides of this. I used to do a lot of investment work into exotic technologies and stuff, and traveled around the world looking at all these different technologies, and at the same time had my foot in both worlds and was doing a lot of metaphysics work and all that sort of stuff. And I remember coming across this inventor who was literally proposed he'd been contacted by interdimensional beings that had given him the blueprints for a spaceship and for a UFO, right? How to make a UFO.
This is what I'm talking about.
Saying it's vitally,
This kind of stuff.
It's vitally important. Yeah, it's great. I love this shit. It's always a good story. And he was insisting that these entities had made contact and were coming through to him through his dreams and insights, and had given him the blueprints of this craft, and they said that every person on the planet needed to have access to this technology, and it was vital for the changes that were coming up in the planet and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, you hear this, the story of, we've come to help. You need this, so we're giving it to you. And so he got to work on building and constructing this thing. Now, if you took a look at his blueprints and his plans and his designs and everything, and you also got the work of, if you remember, a guy called Drunvalo Melchizedek.
No.
Who you have never heard of him?
No.
Well, he was quite a few years ago. He brought the concept of the Merkaba, the light body vehicle, sort of back into the mainstream spiritual community. Got downloads from his guides about building the energy field, the mandala, the Merkaba of the human body, basically using geometric grid forms and everything through visualization to create an energetic field within yourself. So basically, it's almost like the Vajra, the diamond body of Hindu, of the Vedic teachings of basically creating a field of energy anchored in the heart space, anchored in love, that was so strong that you become the effector of reality. You don't get affected by the emotional energies of other people. You have a diamond body. So it's like your energy field is resonating at this high frequency, like what you described you experienced, but being able to hold it, being able to hold it, not losing it. So keeping that frequency going, no matter what's going on around you. And you look at these two bodies of work, one from a scientist and one from a New Age spiritualist, and they're building the same thing. So one's interpreted it as building a physical craft, and the other one's interpreting it as building an energetic field, which is probably more aligned to, if you have enough experience dealing with multidimensional entities, they're usually not into building physical objects, but they're into these more energetic concepts. But I think people can have experiences and attach to them, creating stories around them, and at the end of the day, I think you have to look at it as well. is that adding any kind of value to your life and the life of others? Like the story I shared with you about the rabbits, that's a story, that I got to experience. Was it because, I meditated on a rabbit for a week and that's what happened? Maybe not. Maybe it was all just coincidence. But to me, that's how it happened. And it did, it set me up on a path to really explore the phenomenon of working in the shamanic practices. And, I've certainly, met those, people who, can be absolutely adamant, that they've had this meditation and they met these 11th dimensional guides who told them this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and all this stuff, and channeled, and say it with absolute certainty as if it's unquestionable truth. And, I've spent a lot of time looking at, channeled materials and exploring that realm as well. And again, if it's coming through the mind, it's being filtered and interpreted, by the mind. And the mind only has a certain amount of a palette to put together these concepts. And it's like trying to step down insights and information through other forms of consciousness that may operate in very different ways to the human experience. So the mind becomes the interface between it. So I think it's detrimental, I believe, to really attach to anything with absolute, this is how it is, when you're coming from the mind. You can have an experience and go, I know what I experienced, and this was the experience I had. Okay, that's your experience. That's your experience of it. But when it comes to knowledge and information, my belief, and again, this is just my belief, is that it's all belief. Yeah, truth is truth, whether we know it at all. There is truth. There is fundamental truths, and there is the truth of everything. But the human mind is a factory of beliefs, and we're trying to understand these incredible deep aspects of truth, and we get close to it's a bit like the Fibonacci, the spiral, and oscillates around perfection, but never quite gets there. But it gets closer and closer and closer and closer. But you're dealing with an infinite spiral that's just going to keep spiraling round. And I think that's the truth. We're just going to keep going round and round. That's not to say there's anything bad or wrong about that. I think it just again brings us back into that space of humility and gives us permission, be the children that we actually are. We are children of, a creative consciousness that is so profound and is founded and rooted in the highest expression of love and creativity. And I think our role here is not to try to work it all out, but to experience, to play, and to tap into these natural flows and ways of being, for our own growth and evolution on a personal level and on a collective level, and enjoy the ride. This is the thing. Enjoy the ride. That's what we signed up for.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, it resonates very strongly with me, for sure. Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Yeah. What?
But not.
What is God to you? Like, I mean, that's the kind of biggest question. Is like, what is your understanding of that word or the meaning of that?
I asked when I had that experience, that first breakthrough endogenous experience, and met my guides, my sister guides, and my ancestral guide, and had that experience. That was one of my questions that came up, of like, okay, what's God? And I want to, I was 22-year-old freaking CEO. I wanted to speak to the CEO of heaven. Yeah, just go straight to the top, right? I don't want to mess around with the desk clerk and the PA. I want to speak to the head honcho.
I love that.
Who's this God character? And the guidance that came through was like, you're not going to understand any of this. You're not going to understand. You're not going to understand. So I went through this experience and got this communion, this download, and about my life and all that sort of stuff. And the ancestor guide that was there, he shared a lot of information with me about my father's upbringing, which I had no knowledge about beforehand. And he said to me, he said, "You're not going to believe this," which I wasn't. I thought it was just all happening, a figment of my imagination in my head. He said, "You're not going to believe any of this. You're going to think this is just a dream." He goes, "You go speak to your father about what I've shared with you, and he'll confirm." And he said, you need to take this seriously, that this is a reality. What your experience is a reality. You're not just making this up. So I was like, okay, sure, I'll do that. And which I did. I did end up going and checking it all out. But after we went through this experience, I'm like, okay, I was just felt myself like, okay, I'm done. I can't, time to leave this space and get back to my body. And wanted to speak to God. And in the experience, everything, just the vision that I was having and the visuals and the connection with these beings in spirit all just dissolved away into complete darkness. And I began to really experience this sense of timeless, like time distortion. And then I experienced only what I could describe as like a blackout or like falling asleep, and then waking up again and still being in this just emptiness, just black, just void. And then trying to remember like, who I was and where was I, what was going on. And then I'd remember, and I'd be trying to feel into my body. It was like I started to feel like I was in a coma. I'd put myself into a coma, and then felt all kinds of emotions and anxiety about just being trapped in this space. And then I'd again fall unconscious, come back into consciousness. But when I say consciousness, it's just consciousness is presence, not as any connection to a body or form. And again, go through this process of remembering, quote unquote, who I was. And this went on for what felt like just a long time, like so long that I really thought that was it. I'd done some sort of damage to myself, or had somehow trapped myself into this cycle, and began to freak out internally, like scream, like try to wake myself up and snap myself out of it. And eventually I calmed myself down. I just thought I'd lost consciousness again, and came to, I'm trying to remember who I was again, and then remembering, and then I just was like, okay, how did I get here? How did I get here? Retrace my steps. And so I was able to retrace my steps back through the whole experience, back to, that I was meditating on the couch. And so I thought, okay, that's what I'll do. And I remember it was like dropping everything and just going back inside myself. And as soon as I did that, it was like an explosion of fractals. Which then turned into all these patterns but like I'm talking like super high frame rate, all these patterns of faces, and they were faces of insects, animals, people, stuff, alien looking stuff that I'd never even seen before, but like all this like 1,000 frames per second kind of visions of all these different faces. And it was like this download of these are the faces of God. And then they kept flashing through, they began to deteriorate into galaxies, and then from galaxies into solar systems, and solar systems into planetary bodies, and then it was like boom. The next thing I knew, I literally was thrown up into the air out of the chair. Like I was so keen to move that I just propelled myself up and landed on my feet. I couldn't feel my feet. I was crying. I was like completely blown out. Like, what the fuck was that? and went outside into the sun and had this big sea eagle flying around, the backyard right over the top of me in a circle, and it was just making this noise, like this cawing, and all I heard was, now you know, now you know, now you know. But it left me in this wow. I sat there thinking, what's God? Who is God? What the fuck was that? And cut forward, 15 years from that experience, and really, starting to get some traction and movement on my own understanding of divine nature and unity consciousness. Once upon a time, we thought God was a king sitting in a cloud with, angels and heavens, because that was, the culture of the day. That was the idea of what power and, the benevolent king, in the court of heaven. Now, in today's culture and society, we have, so many different, science is considered a god to some. We have religions that, have their different types of gods and ideas of God and the divine. But I think ultimately, as we do this level of inquiry within ourselves, we start to see that, we're all expressions of that God consciousness. We are all expressions of God consciousness, and it's like the classic namaste, or in Lakesh Alakin, to see the divine in another, and to see myself as another expression, another you, who is ultimately the you that unites us all outside of time and space. We are all one consciousness, So I see this idea of God in my limited belief structure of a human mind as being that totality of unified consciousness. And it's lonely, and outside of God, there's nothing. There's just dark. There's nothing. Even the darkness wasn't darkness. It was just nothing. It was void. It was emptiness. And that experience of wanting to meet God, of demanding, I want to speak to the CEO of heaven, it just sparked that understanding, which took me a while it did take me a while to really integrate it. But the understanding was, outside of it, no one can see God because there's nothing outside of God to see it. So God can never be seen, only be experienced. And that's something I think we all have access to when we go within those spaces within ourselves, and through the heart space, that space of love, that space of great love, unconditional love, that we find the frequency, we find the channel, we find the bandwidth, to connect in with that greater consciousness. And it is way beyond the human mind, but we have another part of ourselves that's built for that connection, and for the mind to be able to experience it and really, really flow with it and work with it and be the child of that higher consciousness.
Wow, beautifully put, mate.
I think that sums it up.
Oh, that was awesome. I think, it's beautiful. Almost like what water is to the ocean, every drop of rain could be interpreted as a different soul, and it all ends up together as one big ocean.
Yeah, and yet still the drop at the same time.
Yeah, yep.
right down to the molecules,
Yeah.
right down to the atoms and all the space in between. Yeah.
Well, Adeon, you definitely get me to that heart space. And for that, I thank you very much.
Oh, not a problem, Jack. It's,
Yeah.
no, it's been good.
Yeah, it's been
having
wonderful.
A good chat.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you so much for making the time. And yeah, I think it's like, I don't know. I got a lot from that chat. I really did.
Yeah, you're good. Me too.
Yeah.
It's good to be able to share some stories, share some beliefs,
Yeah, for sure.
share some experiences. And look, if anything, I encourage anyone to, if life is challenging you, particularly, life has been very challenging for people these last couple of years, and there's been lots of confusion and lots of collective anxiety. My encouragement to people at this time is really to find the time to go into that stillness, find the time to come back to yourselves and find what works for you. Not all plant medicines and these sort of experiences are right for everyone, depending on where what time where they're at in their life. But start building solid foundations, of simple things in life that can provide a stronger and stronger and stronger foundation for people to explore these states without being able to lose themselves in it. And I think that's a pretty wise path to follow that I was guided to very early on in this piece by some amazing teachers and just keep building that foundation and understanding that ultimately it's rooted in compassion and love and forgiveness of ourselves, forgiveness of each other, and not to take it all so seriously.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Adeon. You're awesome, man. Really, you're great. Always so great to talk to you. And thank you everyone so much for listening. Is there any kind of plugs or anything, or do you want people to find you, or do you want people just to leave you be?
Look, people can find me on Facebook or that's probably the easiest thing. I don't tend to talk too much about these subjects on that platform. But if people want to reach out and have a chat, we can take it offline onto a direct phone call or something like that. Look, apart from that, let's just see where things go. It's just really, really lovely to be invited to connect and share my experiences and hopefully it's reached a few people that can benefit from it and hopefully clear any confusions up around this space.
For sure. Thank you, brother. And thanks everyone for listening. Take care. Bye.